Once upon a time, there was a little engine called Edward. He lived in a shed with 5 other engines. They were all bigger than Edward and boasted about it. The driver won't choose you again, they said. He wants big, strong engines like us. Edward had not been out for a long time. He began to feel sad. Just then, the driver and fireman came along to start work. The driver looked at Edward. "Why are you sad?" he asked. "Would you like to come out today?" "Yes, please," said Edward. So the fireman lit the fire and made a nice lot of steam. Then the driver pulled the lever and Edward puffed away. He whistled. "Look at me now." The others were very cross at being left behind. Away went Edward in some coaches. "Be careful, Edward," said the coaches. "Don't bump and bang us like the other engines do." So Edward came up to the coaches, very, very gently. The shunter fastened the coupling. "Thank you, Edward," said the coaches. "That was kind. We're glad you're taking us today." Then they went to the station. Where the people were waiting. Whistled Edward. "Get in quickly, please." So the people got in quickly. And Edward waited happily for the guard to blow his whistle and wave his green flag. Waited and waited. There was no whistle, no green flag. "Where is that guard?" Edward was getting anxious. The driver and fireman asked the station master, "Have you seen the guard?" "No," he said. They asked the porter, "Have you seen the guard?" "Yes, last night," said the porter. Edward began to get cross. "Are we never going to start?" he said. Just then a little boy shouted, "Here he comes." There the guard was, right down the hill. Ran onto the platform, blew his whistle, jumped into his van. Edward puffed off. Children ran to wave as he went past. So hard. The driver promised to take him out again next day. "Going out again tomorrow," he told the other engines that night in the shed. "What do you think of that?" But he didn't hear what they thought. But he was so tired and happy that he fell asleep at once. One of the engines in Edward's shed was called Gordon. He was very big and very proud. "You watch me this afternoon, little Edward," he boasted, "as I rush through with the express. That will be a splendid sight for you." Just then, his driver pulled the lever. "Bye, little Edward," said Gordon as he puffed away. "Look out for me this afternoon." Edward went off too, to do some shunting. Edward liked shunting. It was fun playing with trucks. He would come up quietly and give them a pull. Oh, screamed the trucks. "Whatever is happening?" Then he would stop, and the silly trucks would go bump into each other. Oh, they cried again. Edward pushed them until they were running nicely. And when they weren't expecting it, he would stop. One of them would be sure to run onto another line. Edward played till there were no more trucks. Then he stopped to rest. Presently, he heard a whistle. Gordon came puffing along, very slowly and very crossly. Instead of nice shining coaches, he was pulling a lot of very dirty coal trucks. A goods strain, he grumbled. Shame of it. Shame of it. Shame of it. He went slowly through, with the trucks clattering and banging behind him. Edward laughed. He went to find some more trucks. Soon afterwards, a porter came and spoke to his driver. Gordon can't get up the hill. Will you take Edward and push him, please? They found Gordon halfway up the hill and very cross. His driver and fireman were talking to him severely. You're not trying, they told him. Can't do it, said Gordon. The noisy trucks held an engine back so. They were coaches now. Clean, sensible things that come quietly. That would be different. Edward's driver came up. We've come to push, he said. No use at all, said Gordon. You wait and see, said Edward's driver. They brought the train back to the bottom of the hill. Edward came up behind the brake van ready to push. I'm ready, said Edward. No good, grumbled Gordon. The guard blew his whistle. They pulled and pushed as hard as they could. I can't do it, puffed Gordon. I will do it, puffed Edward. I can't do it. I will do it, they puffed together. Edward pushed and puffed and puffed and pushed as hard as ever he could. And almost before he realized it, Gordon found himself at the top of the hill. I've done it, I've done it, I've done it, I've done it, he said proudly, and forgot all about Edward pushing behind. He didn't wait to say thank you, but ran on so fast that he passed 2 stations before his driver could make him stop. Edward had pushed so hard that when he got to the top, he was out of breath. Gordon ran on so fast that Edward was left behind. He ran on to the next station, and there the driver and fireman said they were very pleased with him. The fireman gave him a nice long drink of water, and the driver said, I'll get out my paint tomorrow and give you a beautiful new coat of blue with yellow stripes. Then you'll be the smartest engine in the shed.
Once, an engine attached to a train was afraid of a few drops of rain. It went into a tunnel and squeaked through its funnel and wouldn't come out again. The engine's name is Henry. His driver and fireman argued with him, but he would not move. The rain will spoil my lovely green paint and red stripes, he said. The guard blew his whistle till he had no more breath and waved his flag till his arms ached, but Henry still stayed in the tunnel and blew steam at him. I'm not going to spoil my lovely green paint and red stripes for you. Then along came Sir Topham Hatt, the man in charge of all the engines on Sodor. They call him the Fat Controller. We will pull you out, said the Fat Controller. but Henry only blew steam at him. Everyone pulled except the Fat Controller, because, he said, my doctor has forbidden me to pull. But still Henry stayed in the tunnel. Then they tried pushing from the other end. The Fat Controller said, 1, 2, 3, push! But he didn't help. My doctor has forbidden me to push, he said. They pushed and pushed and pushed, but still Henry stayed in the tunnel. At last Thomas came along. The guard waved his red flag and stopped him. Everyone argued with Henry. Look, it has stopped raining, they said. Yes, but it will begin again soon, said Henry, and what would become of my green paint with red stripes then? Thomas pushed and puffed and pushed as hard as ever he could. But still Henry stayed in the tunnel. Eventually, even the Fat Controller gave up. We shall take away your rails, he said, and leave you here for always and always and always. They took up the old rails and built a wall in front of him so that Henry couldn't get out of the tunnel anymore. All he could do was watch the trains rushing through the other tunnel. He was very sad because he thought no one would ever see his lovely green paint with red stripes again. As time went on, Edward and Gordon would often pass by. Edward would say, "Peep, peep, hello." And Gordon would say, "Poop, poop, poop, serves you right." Poor Henry had no steam to answer. His fire had gone out. Sudden dirt from the tunnel had spoilt his lovely green paint and red stripes anyway. He wondered if he would ever be allowed to pull trains again. But I think he deserved his punishment. Don't you? Gordon always pulled the big express. He was proud of being the only engine strong enough to do so. It was full of important people, like the Fat Controller, and Gordon was seeing how fast he could go. "Hurry, hurry, hurry," he said. "Tickety-tock, tickety-tock, tickety-tock," said the coaches. In a minute, Gordon would see the tunnel where Henry stood bricked up and lonely. Oh dear, thought Henry, why did I worry about rain spoiling my lovely coat of paint? Will the Fat Controller ever forgive me and let me out again? "I'm going to poop at Henry," said Gordon. He was almost there when... And there was Gordon going slower and slower in a cloud of steam. His driver stopped the train. "What has happened to me?" asked Gordon. "I feel so weak." "You've burst your safety valve," said the driver. "You can't pull the train anymore." "Oh dear," said Gordon. "We were going so nicely too. And look, there's Henry laughing at me." Everyone came to see Gordon. "Huh," said the Fat Controller. "I never liked these big engines. Always going wrong. Send for another engine at once." While the guard went to find one, they uncoupled Gordon, who had enough puff to slink onto the siding out of the way. Edward was the only engine left. "I'll come and try," he said. "Huh," said Gordon. "That's no use. Edward can't push the train." Edward puffed and pushed and pushed and puffed, but he couldn't move the heavy coaches. "I told you so," said Gordon. "Why not let Henry try?" "Yes," said the Fat Controller, "I will." "Will you help pull this train, Henry?" he asked. "Oh, yes," said Henry. When Henry had got up steam, he puffed out. He was dirty and covered with cobwebs. "Oh, I am stiff, he groaned. "Have a run to ease your joints and find a turntable," said the Fat Controller. When Henry came back, he felt much better. Then they coupled him up. "Peep, peep," said Edward, "I'm ready." "Peep, peep, peep," said Henry, "so am I." "Pull hard, we'll do it. Pull hard, we'll do it." They puffed together. "We've done it together, we've done it together," said Edward and Henry. "You've done it, hooray! You've done it, hooray!" sang the coaches. Everyone was excited. The Fat Controller leaned out of the window to wave at Edward and Henry. But the train was going so fast that his hat blew off into a field where a goat ate it for tea. They never stopped till they came to the station at the end of the line. The passengers all said thank you, and the Fat Controller promised Henry a new coat of paint. On their way home, Edward and Henry helped Gordon back to the shed. All three engines are now great friends. Henry doesn't mind the rain now. He knows that the best way to keep his paint nice is not to run into tunnels, but to ask his driver to rub him down when the day's work is over.